On April 19, 1999, the Ambassador Choir from Prairie Bible College left Three Hills, Alberta, Canada, to spend a privileged month in a culture and denomination where music is considered to be the second sermon. To a people who had truly experienced the troubles of this world, they brought a message of hope. Now today's short-term mission trips to all parts of the world, including Ukraine, can be found in abundance. Yet this cooperative ministry had distinctives which set it apart from other short-term mission trips. In response to the ministry of the choir, Ukrainian church leaders and missionary personnel used words like historic, groundbreaking, one of a kind, the beginning of something new. Clearly conceived in the mind of God, executed by His willing servants, and fueled by the prayers and sacrificial giving of God's people, this is the story of what can happen when the church, Bible college, mission organization, and believers are obedient to the voice of God. The idea for the trip began a few years ago when Leander Rempel, Canadian Director for Send International, asked Dr. Berenza, President of the Irpin Seminary, how the Canadian Church could assist the Ukrainian Church.
Mr. Jansen has already said that we have prayed much for this hour.
Мистер Дженсен уже сказал, что мы много молились о том, чтобы этот час пришел.
And indeed we have.
И это действительно так было, мы молились.
It is 3 years ago that we visited Irpin Seminary for the first time. After we had visited the seminary, Dr. Berenza, I asked Dr. Berenza, what can we do to help you?
Dr. Berenza responded by saying, because of the teaching of secularistic, atheistic communism, there is a missing element in the training of our choir directors. They are highly trained musicians, but only in the secular aspects of music, not sacred. Come and help us train our music leaders. Behind the scene, God was preparing and choosing specific individuals. As one who was chosen, I was humbled by what I heard.
That the help that he wanted to come in the area of music had to be a special kind.
И доктор Бринза уточнил, что он хотел бы, чтобы помощь в этом музыкальном отношении, она была бы вот несколько особой.
It had to be somebody who was educated in the area of music.
Нужен кто-то, кто был бы образован в области музыки.
But he also had to have very, very deep roots theologically.
Но с другой стороны, хотелось бы, чтобы такой человек был бы глубоко укоренен именно в богословском отношении.
So I went back to North America to look for that person.
Я поехал обратно в Америку и начал Ловский.
Dr. Berenza mentioned that day that he had a high respect for Mennonites.
Доктор Бринза в тот день упомянул, что у него он высоко уважает меннонитов.
And I found that man in James Jansen.
И такого человека я нашел как раз в лице Джеймса Дженсена.
A Mennonite from Manitoba.
Because of Prairie's reputation for high-quality music, passion for ministry, and cross-cultural communication, Send International approached the Fine Arts Department at Prairie Bible College about the possibility of helping. This was the beginning of a vision which would eventually include 5 goals: to encourage believers in Ukraine, to serve the evangelical church in Ukraine by complementing their summer evangelistic activities, assist in the training and equipping of Ukrainian church music leaders, especially through a 1-week seminar held in Kiev, to expose responsible, well-prepared college students to some of the joys and challenges of serving the Lord in cross-cultural missions work. And finally, to further inform North American churches and believers about God's ongoing work in Ukraine. The extensive preparation needed to reach these goals began during the choir's annual fall retreat. Fortunately, we were working with a mission that has a lot of experience in sending short-term mission teams. We were also fortunate in having a number of key people join us for that weekend. Leander Rempel, Sen's Canadian director shared his vision and gave a strong scriptural challenge.
Man has always had great difficulty understanding God's time.
Andrew Geldart was in charge of a lot of the logistics and led us through many practical aspects of preparation related to visas and passports. An unexpected surprise was having our team leader join us. Rob Magwood, affectionately known as Mags, happened to be home from the field during that time and assisted us in learning a Russian song. But more importantly, the team began to appreciate this gift of God to us. As the bridge between cultures and languages, this sensitive, caring, and highly organized young missionary was going to endear himself to each of the choir members. The strong choir executive of Carmen Binder, Corinne Martins, John Booker, and Susan Hewitt was led by a young visionary president, Jason Miller, affectionately known to us as Yace. This quality leadership, combined with Sen's excellent training materials, laid a strong foundation. Passport pictures, immunization shots, language learning, including Russian and Ukrainian songs in the repertoire, additional readings, these were only a few of the many tasks to be accomplished, and all of these in addition to the heavy demands of a normal academic year. But then suddenly we found ourselves in Kiev, involved in the last part of the preparation. This on-field orientation included learning appropriate cultural behavior, basic survival phrases, history of the church and country, and expectations in ministry. On a very practical level, students had a chance to practice giving their testimony through a translator. Pacing, length of sentence, idiomatic cliches that are hard to translate, continuity, brevity, takeoffs and landing, all these were practiced to ensure clear, focused communication.
Good afternoon. Добрый день. My name is Galen Osmolo. Меня зовут Galen Osmolo, and I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Я из Эдмонтона, это Канада.
We quickly found out that life in Ukraine is rarely predictable. Now, being flexible has its advantages. Take, for instance, the wonderful opportunity that resulted from the spontaneous decision to delay our departure for the western part of Ukraine in order to make a recording. Pastor Alexander felt that a recording would be a great encouragement to the believers. He had a vision and the context to allow this to happen within 48 hours of the original idea. With the recording completed, we left on Tuesday, April 27th, for the second portion of our trip, where our time was spent in two major cities, Vinnytsia and Zhytomyr. In Zhytomyr, the warm greeting that we were to experience everywhere also included the time-honored tradition of salt and bread. It didn't take too long before we realized that the ministry of encouraging the believers would follow a pattern. After the opening comments, congregational songs, and short sermon, we were generally given an hour of time. Since Easter is celebrated for a month after Easter Sunday, we usually began with the traditional Easter greeting, Christ is risen. After a musical package of 2 or 3 songs, one of our students would give a testimony. The readiness to give a testimony at any time without warning was a basic expectation for each of our students, and is a cultural expectation in the evangelical church for all Bible school students and baptized Christians. After another package of songs, one of the young men from our choir would deliver a sermon.
There was once a very great king who wanted to settle accounts in his country.
Значит, был один великий царь, могущественный, который захотел провести инспекцию по своей стране.
So he called in all the servants that owed him money.
И поэтому он призвал всех слуг, которые были должны ему денег.
As he began this settlement, a man came in who owed him millions of grivna.
Когда, значит, человек пришел к нему, вернее, когда он начал эти собирать сведения все, он призвал себе человека, который был должен ему 1 000 000 гривен.
It's much more than the man could ever pay.
То есть это намного больше, чем тот человек мог заплатить.
And the king knew this.
И царь знал, что это так.
The man begged the king, please do not throw me in prison. I will pay back all that I owe.
И поэтому он возмолился, этот человек, и сказал: пожалуйста, не отдавай меня истязателям в темницу, я заплачу, как смогу, все, что я должен.
But the king knew that the man could never repay the debt.
Но царь знал, что никогда не заплатит этот человек денег.
Yet the king had mercy.
И поэтому царь был милостивый царь.
And he canceled the whole debt.
И он отменил, он, так сказать, списал весь
And he
долг.
let the man go free.
И он отпустил этого человека.
So the man is walking on the street.
Поэтому он вот так вот ушел по улице, идет.
And he spots another man.
И он увидел, значит, другого человека.
And that man owed him 50 kopek.
И тот, значит, был должен этому первому 50 копеек.
And he takes the man by the neck and
И
said,
вот так он взял его за шею и начал трясти
pay
его.
me back what you owe me.
Заплати мне, что ты мне должен, он ему сказал.
The servants of the king saw this.
Значит, слуги царя, которые служат ему, они увидели, как этот человек поступал.
They saw the man that was given mercy was not giving mercy out to others.
Но он знал человека, они увидели человека, которому была проявлена милость великая, и что он, в свою очередь, не проявил милости.
So they brought that servant back to the king and told the king what he had done.
Поэтому они схватили этого слугу первого, они взяли его, привели к царю и рассказали ему, что он сделал.
And the king said, I canceled your debt.
И тогда царь сказал ему: я простил тебе все, что ты мне был должен.
Why won't you cancel other debt?
Почему ты не простил тот долг, который были должны тебе?
And I became a Christian at a very early age.
И я когда стал христианином, когда я был очень-очень маленьким, еще молодым.
All through my life, my nature, especially growing up in high school, wanted to do things apart from the Bible.
Но моя природа, знаете, особенно когда я был в старших классах средней школы, она так бунтовала, и я хотел делать то, что мне нравится.
But my parents kept me true to the Word.
Но мои родители так поставили такие установления, что я должен ходить был по прямой дорожке.
Recently I found out my father has not been living the life that he taught me to live.
Недавно, какое-то время назад, спустя этого, я узнал, что мой отец проводил жизнь не по своим словам. То есть он говорил одно, а делал другое.
He has been caught in secret sins for many years.
Его поймали на том, что он один.
I've struggled many nights wondering whether I should forgive him.
И много-много вечеров я проводил и в размышлениях, простить ли мне моего отца.
Everything within me wants to hate my father for lying to me.
Все во мне, все мои эмоции, они хотели ненавидеть отца моего за то, что он меня обманывал.
But this story and James reminds me that if I hate my brother, I cannot love God.
Но эта история, и Иаков, или Джеймс, ему сказали, что я не могу, наверное, Иаков все-таки, что я не могу не любить человека и оставаться любить Бога.
Even though I may hurt a lot from what my father has done, I have hurt my heavenly Father much more.
И он сказал мне: даже несмотря на то, что отец твой причинял тебе столько боли, подумай о том, что ты причинял намного больше боли своему небесному отцу.
Just like the servant in the story, my father, heavenly Father, has forgiven me millions of grivna, and my earthly Father only owes me a few kopek.
Точно так же, как в этой истории, которую мы из Библии читаем, мой небесный отец простил мне миллион, мой небесный отец простил мне миллион, а мой земной отец должен был мне всего лишь несколько копеек, кишаю.
I've learned in a small way in the last year what it means to forgive.
За последний год я изучил, что значит прощать.
I pray that God will help us all be merciful.
Я молюсь, чтобы Бог помог нам всем быть милостивыми. Аминь.
This was generally followed by another song package, testimony, and then the final songs which brought our portion to an end. But the service was far from completion. Yet to come were a sermon from the senior pastor, special prayer requests, And then the special highlight of singing one of the well-loved Russian or Ukrainian choir numbers with the choir from the local congregation. While encouraging believers, we also worked on the second goal of serving the evangelical church in Ukraine. Our role here was to generate interest through musical concerts. The churches had arranged for us to sing in a number of sanatoriums, places where children from the Chernobyl area would come for rest and physical renewal. After our presentation, which included testimonies and a clear presentation of the gospel, the local pastor would speak to the children and ask how many would want a Bible. The majority of students were quick to raise their hands, indicating that they would like to receive the Gideon New Testaments, and then surrounded our students asking them to sign their names. We took advantage of this opportunity to highlight passages like John 3:16. More than 1,000 children heard a clear presentation of the gospel, many for the first time. Only God knows how the sowing of this seed will bring forth a harvest. The third portion of our time in Ukraine was spent back in Kiev, focusing on the third goal of training and equipping Ukrainian church music leaders in a one-week seminar. Many of the men who came do not have jobs, and neither they nor their churches have any money to pay for travel and lodging. The money given towards seminar costs by believers in North America paid for train fare to Kiev, lodging and meals, photocopying of conference materials, and the cost of printing special choir books. Pastor Alexander Kreschuk had produced a new book of choral arrangements in Ukrainian and Russian especially for this conference. Participants were given enough copies to take back for their choirs. Since churches cannot afford to buy these books, you can imagine the joy when these men returned to their choirs with new songs and new arrangements. During the day, I joined Leander Rempel and Ukrainian church leaders in teaching 50 men that had come together from all parts of Ukraine. The group also included Misha, a seminary student from Far East Russia. In our time together, we sought to answer a very basic question. Based on the Bible, why did God create music? 5 answers were discussed. For His pleasure, to allow us to respond to His character, for personal edification, for edification of the body, and for evangelism. The men formed a male choir, and in the evenings we joined with these wonderful voices to present a service of sacred music.
Allah
the weekend, we traveled north of Kiev, where finances from the money raised by the choir allowed for the rental of large halls. Here some of our favorite memories include the wonderful bass solos, and the congregation's and choir's love for hymns like What a Friend We Have in Jesus and How Great Thou Art. Again and again they thanked me for the opportunity to see the truths that were taught during the day, lived out in a practical manner as we presented our program in the evening and as I interacted with my students. Without a question, the seminar had a powerful effect on the music leadership of the largest evangelical denomination in Ukraine. After this week of combined ministry, most of the men went back to their home churches. Joined by the music students from the seminary, we now traveled south for the fourth portion of our time in Ukraine. Kremenchuk and Nikopol were our base for ministry. Day after day we experienced good food, wonderful hospitality, countless ministry opportunities, and answers to prayer. Among the countless wonderful experiences, one stands out as truly unique. That rainy Sunday afternoon birthday barbecue for the manager of a cooperative farm. As the time to leave drew closer, we began to reflect on our time and realized that the fourth goal of exposing responsible, well-prepared college students to some of the joys and challenges of serving the Lord in cross-cultural missions work had been realized. For our debriefing time, we met in a sanatorium and began to think of how we would meet our final goal of informing North American churches and believers about God's ongoing work in Ukraine.
John saw the 144,000. John saw the 144,000 coming up on high. John saw him, John saw them.